The moment arrives with chilling simplicity. A single transmission echoes across the galaxy. Execute Order 66. Within minutes, the most trusted protectors of the Republic turn their weapons on their Jedi commanders. Friends become executioners. Loyalty transforms into lethal betrayal. But this isn't just science fiction. It's a masterclass in the psychology of institutional collapse. George Lucas crafted Order 66 as more than a plot device. It's a terrifying exploration of how quickly democratic institutions can crumble from within. The clone troopers, bred for absolute loyalty, become the perfect instrument of authoritarian takeover. Their conditioning represents the ultimate perversion of military discipline, turning soldiers into unwitting agents of tyranny. The psychological foundation of Order 66 lies in behavioral conditioning. The clones weren't evil, they were programmed. Their inhibitor chips removed moral choice from the equation. This reflects real-world concerns about how military training can override individual conscience. Studies in social psychology reveal how ordinary people can commit extraordinary acts of violence when authority structures demand compliance. Stanley Milgram's obedience experiments demonstrated that most people will inflict harm when ordered by perceived authority. The clone troopers embody this principle taken to its logical extreme. They represent the militarization of society, where questioning orders becomes impossible, where loyalty to the state supersedes personal relationships and moral reasoning. The Jedi's trust in the clones makes their betrayal even more devastating. For years, these soldiers fought side by side, shared battles, saved each other's lives. Yet when the order came, personal bonds meant nothing. This reflects how institutional betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from those we trust most. The psychological trauma isn't just from the violence, it's from the complete collapse of assumed loyalty. Consider the scene with Commander Cody and Obi-Wan. Moments before Order 66, Cody returns Obi-Wan's lightsaber with respect and camaraderie. Minutes later, he's ordering artillery strikes on his former general. The speed of this transformation illustrates how quickly institutional structures can flip, how programmed responses can override years of personal connection. This mirrors historical examples of military coups, where soldiers trained to protect democracy become its destroyers. The Turkish coup attempts, the Chilean military overthrow of Allende, the rise of military juntas across Latin America. In each case, institutions designed to serve the people became instruments of oppression. The psychology remains consistent. Authority structures can be hijacked and redirected with devastating efficiency. The clone troopers' lack of individual identity makes them perfect instruments of betrayal. They were literally bred for compliance. Their genetic uniformity reflects the authoritarian dream of a perfectly obedient population. No dissent, no questioning, no moral hesitation. Just absolute adherence to orders. This represents the ultimate fear of democratic societies, that their protectors might become their oppressors. Lucas understood that the most effective tyrannies don't announce themselves. They emerge from within existing structures. Palpatine doesn't conquer the Republic, he transforms it. The clone army wasn't an invading force, it was the Republic's own military. This internal transformation makes the betrayal more psychologically devastating, and more realistic. The Jedi's failure to detect the clone's programming reveals another psychological truth. We often can't see threats that emerge from within our own systems. The Jedi were looking for external enemies, Sith lords hiding in shadows. They never suspected their own army. This cognitive blind spot reflects how democratic institutions often fail to recognize internal threats until it's too late. The inhibitor chips represent the mechanization of moral choice. The clones don't choose to betray the Jedi. They're compelled by biological programming. This removes agency and creates perfect instruments of oppression. It reflects fears about how technology and conditioning can override human conscience, how free will itself can be compromised by those who control the levers of power. The speed of Order 66's execution demonstrates the vulnerability of decentralized systems. The Republic's strength, its vast network of clone forces, becomes its weakness. A single command propagates instantly across the galaxy. This reflects modern concerns about how interconnected systems can be compromised, how the very networks that make democracy possible can be turned against it. Psychologically, the clone troopers represent the banality of evil. They're not monsters, they're soldiers following orders. Hannah Arendt's analysis of Adolf Eichmann revealed how ordinary bureaucrats can facilitate genocide through simple compliance. The clones embody this principle, evil perpetrated not through malice, but through programmed obedience.
The Jedi's trust in the clones reflects a fundamental assumption of democratic societies, that those sworn to protect will honor their oaths. When this assumption fails, when protectors become predators, the psychological impact extends beyond immediate violence. It destroys faith in institutions themselves. This is why military coups are so devastating. They don't just change governments, they shatter public trust. Order 66 also explores the psychology of mass coordination. How do you ensure simultaneous betrayal across an entire galaxy? through programming that bypasses individual choice. This reflects real-world concerns about how mass movements can be manipulated, how propaganda and conditioning can create coordinated action without individual understanding of the larger plan. The clone troopers' post-Order 66 behavior reveals another disturbing truth. They show no remorse, no recognition of betrayal. The programming doesn't just compel action, it reshapes perception. They genuinely believe they're doing the right thing. This reflects how authoritarian systems don't just control behavior, they control reality itself, making oppression seem like justice. Lucas crafted Order 66 during the early 2000s, a time of increasing concern about executive power and military authority. The parallels to contemporary fears about democratic backsliding are unmistakable. How quickly can democratic norms collapse? How easily can protectors become oppressors? Order 66 provides a chilling answer, very quickly and very easily. The Jedi's extinction represents the elimination of moral authority. Those who might question or resist the new order are systematically removed. This reflects a common pattern in authoritarian takeovers. Intellectuals, judges, religious leaders, anyone who might provide moral or legal resistance is neutralized first. The clone troopers become instruments of this cultural genocide. The psychological impact of Order 66 extends beyond the immediate victims. Surviving Jedi like Obi-Wan and Yoda must grapple with complete institutional collapse. Everything they believed in, everything they served, has been perverted. This trauma reflects the experience of those who witnessed democratic breakdown, the disorientation of watching trusted institutions become instruments of oppression. The clone troopers' transformation from protectors to executioners illustrates how military conditioning can be weaponized. Their training in discipline and obedience, originally virtues, become tools of tyranny. This reflects ongoing debates about military culture and civilian control. How do we maintain effective armed forces without creating instruments of oppression? Order 66 succeeds because it exploits the Republic's greatest strength, its military. This paradox reflects a fundamental tension in democratic societies. The same forces that protect democracy can destroy it. The same discipline that makes soldiers effective can make them dangerous. The same loyalty that ensures military effectiveness can be redirected towards authoritarian ends. The scene's emotional impact comes from its inevitability. Once Palpatine gives the order, there's no stopping it. No appeals to friendship, no moral arguments, no desperate pleas. The programming is absolute. This reflects the nightmare scenario of democratic collapse, when institutional safeguards fail simultaneously, when there's no mechanism for resistance or appeal. Lucas understood that the most terrifying betrayals come from within. The clone troopers weren't conquered enemies, they were trusted allies. Their betrayal represents the collapse of social trust itself. This psychological insight makes Order 66 more than entertainment. It's a warning about the fragility of democratic institutions and the eternal vigilance required to protect them. The legacy of Order 66 extends throughout the Star Wars saga. The empire built on this foundation of betrayal never achieves legitimacy. It rules through fear rather than consent. This reflects how governments born from institutional betrayal struggle with legitimacy. They may have power, but they lack moral authority. The psychological wound of the original betrayal never fully heals. Ultimately, Order 66 serves as a masterful exploration of institutional psychology. It reveals how quickly trust can be shattered, how easily loyalty can be redirected, and how vulnerable democratic systems are to internal subversion. The clone troopers' betrayal isn't just science fiction. It's a psychological study of how democracies die, and why eternal vigilance remains the price of freedom.